G'day, welcome to Say It With Guitars. I'm your host, Pete Cornelius. Each episode I'll be digging deep and getting to hang with some of Australia's finest guitar pickers, songwriters, producers, collectors and makers. I look forward to bringing you these fun conversations and I hope you enjoy Say It With Guitars. Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Say It With Guitars. Yes, the podcast all about those six strings and the people that play them. Anyway, I've had a couple of busy weekends, folks, playing out and about. Did a few shows with Fanny Lumsden over the last weekend and caught up with some great guitar players. It's in her band, Michael Moko and Paddy Montgomery, both great pickers. And yeah, I'll hopefully get those fellas on the show at some stage. Also got to hear and catch up with a guitar player from Thirsty Merc, Matt Smith, who was laying it down as well. So yeah, might see if he's keen for a chat on the show as well. Anyway, let's get on to today's show. Our guest today is Dom Turner. Dom is a wealth of knowledge in the blues world. He's played a lot over the years with lots of different people, lots of different styles of blues, and the Backsliders would be his most famous, iconic outfit. But yeah, he does have a new band called the Dom Turner and the Rural Blues Project, and I play some tunes throughout the podcast today of some of his work. So yeah, hopefully you sit back, relax, and enjoy our chat today with Dom Turner. Before we crack into today's show, I'd like to shout out to our sponsor, Mr. Billy Tarrant from Tarrant Guitars. Billy's an amazing luthier and he makes some real sweet instruments. I'm lucky enough for him to have built me a 00 size acoustic guitar, which I've dragged all around the country and it's sounding better than ever. So yeah, check out tarrantguitars.net.au, Tassie's one-stop custom workshop for custom-made guitars, all guitar repairs and services. Let's get into the show. All right, I'd like to welcome to the podcast today of Say It With Guitars, Mr. Dom Turner. Dom, how you going?
Very good, Pete. Great to be here.
Thank you very much for...
Great to be anywhere.
Yeah, thanks very much for hanging out with us here on the podcast. Had a
Thank you.
nephew of yours on the podcast recently, so great to have another Turner on the show.
Yes, I did hear about that, which is that's really good. Amazing band, that Sweet Talk. They're really Sweet Talk Music, really a terrific band.
They're a good bunch of guys, great band, and yeah, really keeping the southern sort of roots flame burning bright. Yeah,
it is exactly right. That the idea of, I've spoken to Dave on many occasions about this. I was kind of chuffed. I'm a huge fan of Little Feat. Mm-hmm. And of course, Lowell George, and it's clear that they've got those influences in their own original music, and it's really great to see somebody taking Little Feat, but then doing something with it. You know what I mean? And not just sort of covering that stuff, but doing something interesting with that sound. Yeah. Because essentially, Little Feat did that with the New Orleans beats and the New Orleans sound. They kind of took that kind of Alan Toussaint feel and various other New Orleans artists and molded it into their own thing. So they're doing a similar thing. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, and they're bringing it to the kids. Like most venues that they play are, sort of the under 30 bracket. So going down a tree.
Yeah.
There is hope.
Yeah, that's great. It's got such a broad appeal, that music, but it's really good that they're the ones championing it at their age. And it's really getting out there.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So tell me, mate, we briefly caught up at Thredbo earlier this year. I got to see your new project, and that's called the Rural Blues Project. But I don't think George Washing Machine was with you. Is he part of the band, or is he just come and go when it?
Well, it's really, to be honest, with that band, it's really a duo. Actually, it's really
Roscoe.
I say that, but we never really play as a duo. It's me and Roscoe Clark. Yeah, Roscoe Clark on drums. That was sort of the idea of it. But and then we did one or two gigs like that, and then I sort of wanted to introduce some other elements into it. So I've been alternating back and forth between either George Washington Machine on violin or basically kind of fiddles, really, the kind of style he's playing in that, like a fiddle style, kind of drawing on. I mean, George, maybe I'll talk about him first, but George is a guitar player, actually. Firstly, that's his first instrument is guitar. And so he does gigs on guitar. So I wanted somebody, well, any of the musicians that I work with, they always have to have a great feel for improvisation, because I work off that a lot.
Yeah.
And I like to leave it really open. And I don't like to, which is one of the reasons why I don't have a bass player too. It's because, I like to just keep that element completely open. But anyway, I wanted to have something with a kind of a Cajun-ish feel in it, mixing in with my versions of, early blues stuff. So George was perfect for that and fitted right in. We kind of had, an audition really, but he just locked into the whole concept. And then the other alternative is Johnny Gauchi, who plays keyboards and organ, piano, and accordion.
Yes.
In fact, kind of more accordion these days in the band. And again, I've worked with Johnny for a number of years, and he kind of gets my idea of the, open feels and open grooves and everything like that. So there's a lot of room for change. Everything's going to change every night. It's never going to be the same.
Great.
That's the idea.
Great.
So that's kind of really it. But Roscoe and I have done gigs as a duo.
Yeah, you can tell there's a definite connection between you and Roscoe, especially with that groove-based kind of impro, sort of sitting on something and just sort of baking it for a while, as opposed to like always keeping things moving and changing and improvising. Like it sort of seems like you find the pocket and it sort of just sits in there and just like gets funky. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. You've identified the kind of heart of the band, and that's really, I mean, in terms of the grooves, we're drawing a lot on hill country, Mississippi hill country music. As an outsider to that, and that music, has got, because of the fact that there's the fife and drum music from the same region, from North Mississippi, fife and drum music, which is, bass drum, snare drum, and a fife playing the high end. And that stuff is obviously completely rhythmic and basically non-chordal, because the fife doesn't play chords and plays single notes.
Yep.
So there's a huge crossover in music between the hill country grooves and the fife and drum sort of thing. So we're kind of drawing on that element. And what will happen is that the groove will change from night to night in terms of even within a song. It's not, we don't always lock in at the same point on the same thing, but that's the whole thing. It actually took Roscoe a little bit of time to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Not comfortable with, he's completely comfortable with the groove thing, but often the endings will change, and, now he kind of laughs at, and goes, well, that worked. It'll be different tomorrow night, but it worked tonight. That's the idea, is that I'm trying to keep things so that it's, of course there's elements that need to remain the same, but for the most part things change. And so that means that for me, for us playing, it becomes an event, and then for the audience as well, we hope that it's something interesting for them to see, that things could fall apart. I love that when I go to see a gig. It's like, think, wow, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Could go either way. I don't mind which way it goes, but I'm enjoying the journey.
That's a great way to attack a live gig, especially if you've played a lot with someone over the years, or in a lot of the similar venues perhaps, or it's just a nice fresh way to attack music, is to go, all right, here's a theme and let's just see where it takes us, especially with guidelines on like if you're sort of focusing on hill country style, the Junior Kimbrough kind of like one chord style tunes, it gives you a bit of a foundation, and then you can kind of just like
Yeah.
embellish that, or you can, there's lots of different ways to take that, and that's great. Like I think probably from Roscoe's end of the spectrum as well, he's probably used to just playing like a lot of rehearsed, tight arrangements as well.
Yeah.
So
very, very much so, and particularly playing for years with the 4-Day Riders. And I've always loved Roscoe's playing.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of first met Roscoe probably about 1980, 81, around then. I used to go and see the 4-Day Riders all the time, and I always have loved Roscoe's drumming.
Yeah.
But it's quite a different drumming style that he uses with the Royal Blues Project. In fact, I think it's more demanding in that, because it's more high energy.
Yep.
And Roscoe can play loud, which is great as far as I'm concerned. But it's more high energy, and that he's got to be completely on his toes, so to speak. But he kind of loves it as well.
Yep.
He kind of learned a lot for this band from, we did a couple of tours with R.L. Boyce from North Mississippi, who's a friend of mine and a great tradition-bearing musician from that region, in the same styles as, you know, Junior Kimber and R.L. Burnside. And so he's from that area, from a small town, Como, Mississippi, that Mississippi Fred McDowell came from. And it's a place that I visit, you know, almost every year. But anyway, R.L. is probably he's really on the edge in terms of, he doesn't have a set list. Okay, so a lot of musicians don't have a set list, but he really doesn't know what song he's going to play until the moment he starts to play it.
Yeah.
And in fact, he even says that, he said something, I hold the guitar and then God gives me the idea and then I play it. It's something like that. I'm paraphrasing badly here. Yeah. But in other words, he really doesn't know, so much so that he went on to Jules Holland TV show on in the UK, kind of a well-known program for live artists. So RL was on there, and apparently RL's manager was telling me the producers would just up in arms because he wouldn't tell them what song he's going to play, because he doesn't know what song he's going to play, because he doesn't know till he touches the guitar and God tells him what song he's going to play.
That's fantastic.
So, which is pretty funny. But and then a song may not be. It might be a mixture of a number of songs. It can be lyrics that. This is RL. It can be lyrics that he's just thought of on the spot, or something that's happening in the room, or he's just piecing together a stream of consciousness stuff, you know. So a song is nowhere anyway going to be anything like it was the last time you played it.
Yep.
And so I had to brief Roscoe when we toured with RL and said, this is what happens.
Yep. And
you just have to be ready.
Buckle up and ready.
Roscoe loved it. You know, just absolutely loved it and kind of got the whole thing. And I think he listened to a lot to some of the great hill country drummers, in particular Cedric Burnside's father, Calvin Jackson, who's kind of great hill country drummer, played with Junior Kimber and various other artists, and of course Cedric Burnside. But you know, Roscoe's got his own groove, and it just was so wonderful.
And it's a great thing to sort of change up the way that you attack something too. Like maybe, you know, after years of playing a particular way to learn a new skill and to sort of change your style, even though it's still classified as blues music. It's a totally different approach to the same sort of instrument, So, yeah, I'm sure tonally as well, he's probably tuning his drums a bit differently.
Yeah, you have to think about particularly the kick drum in the case when you're playing. I mean, in the Real Blues Project, we don't have bass. The bass comes from I play fingerstyle, so the bass is coming from my thumb and often low guitar tunings combined with the kick drum. So the kick drum's got to be louder. And so you kind of have to, like in Backsliders, we have the same thing, but Rob Hurst uses a marching drum for a kick drum to get kind of a larger kick drum, bass drum sound. And it's, again, with R.L. Boyce, he generally doesn't have a bass player, and as do many of the artists in North Mississippi. Junior Kimbrough was an exception because he tended to have bass players in his group, but it's not always the case. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yep. So how did you get onto this sort of music, Tom? How did the hill country or just early blues prick your ears? What made you stand up and listen to this stuff? Like, was there a radio show or someone pass on some tapes? Or
that's a great question, and I've had to answer this one many times over the years, and I'm even still not sure of the answer, because I think part of it is just the particular person. Like, I still have this idea that if I got a 78 player and put it out on the street and put on a Blind Lemon Jefferson 78, probably 99.9% of the population would just walk past it and wouldn't even notice it. And somebody, in this case me, who, if you'd never heard that music before, you'd go, what the hell is that? Yeah. You know what I mean? You just get sucked into it. For some reason or other, that music, that sound completely resonated with me from when I was a teenager, from when I first heard it. So in terms of the practicality, though, of what happened, one, I was listening. I got a lot of older brothers and sisters. So this is growing up in the 60s, when I was in primary school. There's a lot of music happening in the house, as in records playing, and it was usually the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, the Who, Donovan, the Beatles, Joni Mitchell, that kind of Bob Dylan, that kind of whole realm of things. And you see, I'm listening to that music and I'm pulling out things that I like. I particularly like the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan and the Who. And then some point or other, you pick up that you're hearing certain sounds. Didn't realize at the time it was actually slide guitar and harmonica. You're hearing these microtonal things going on, notes bending, stuff like that. For some reason or other, those songs appeal to you. And then you look at a record cover and you see, oh, Little Red Rooster. Wow, I like that sound. What's going on there? It's slide guitar. You don't know what it is. Who wrote that? And then you go and try and find that album. And so that was kind of the process that I went through. And I had another school friend as well, and he bought an album called The Sound of the Delta. I've actually got it here sitting over in the corner of the room. The Sound of the Delta on Testament Records, and it had a collection of Mississippi artists, primarily Mississippi artists, including Big Joe Williams, Avery Brady, and Mississippi Fred McDowell. And when I heard Fred, it's just like, my life completely changed. So I was in high school. It's like, wow, this is just the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life, And then you go in deeper. So I started buying Fred's records and Lead Belly. I'm not 100% sure how I think it might have been through Led Zeppelin, through looking and seeing the Gallows Pole that they covered was a Huddy Ledbetter, Who's That, Lead Belly, and then, wow, hear that, man. While Led Zeppelin did good, cool versions of the things, and I admire them for that. It's like when you hear the original, it's like, wow, this is so much better, So yeah, that was it. That was the path, and of just finding more and more in that kind of realm. I got into Lemon Jefferson very early on, and Blind Blake, Blind Boy Fuller, Tampa Red, Blind Willie McTell was another huge one for me. And so the kind of Barbecue Bob, the whole realm of the 12-string guitar players and that. So I was listening to other things in high school as well, like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and all that. But like the record collection, it was this early music that was that collection was growing larger than. And I wasn't playing in the end of high school. I was playing harmonica in a school band and singing, but I wasn't playing guitar yet. And I started playing guitar.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I did. I grew up in Sydney, yeah.
And you grew up around Sydney? Yep. And so you want to start playing guitar? That stuff, you sort of more influenced on the harmonica?
I did have
what you just mentioned?
Being at that point, being the 70s, I just had this idea. I loved guitar and I loved music, and I just like my understanding of how to learn a musical instrument was, the experience of walking past classrooms and seeing people in there trying to play instruments from music, reading music and playing it. And that notation thing, and that felt completely alien to me. I don't know why. I just felt like it would bore me to tears, I still don't read music. And I didn't quite realize that I didn't realize at that time that that's not the only way to do it, And so it wasn't until the harmonica I just sort of picked up and played, and I was never very good, but I did play in a school band. And then when I kind of left school, I just I just had to play guitar. I just got to realize it, and so I just started working it out myself. Rather than the notational approach, and sort of listening to records and trying to play along. And I did get chord charts and sort of to get basic chords to work out songs that I, kind of knew or whatever. But even then I realized the limitations of that, if you listen to a Robert Johnson song that technically only has 2 or 3 chords in it, they're so complicated because it's not about the chord that you're playing. It's about the plucking of the notes and the individual notes in between, because they're almost like orchestral pieces in a way that change every time. They're not just a couple of chords. But I did start off that way, a few chords strumming along, but then kind of delved in further to finger style and to where I've sort of ended up today. So it was probably an unusual way to go, but
especially with that, like if you were learning that style of music initially, just playing by ear or just picking things up from listening to records or whatever your source might have been, you probably would have had to have tuned your guitar to the medium. Because a lot of that time, things might not have been to concert pitch, and even things like open tuning would have been. I don't know, like, how did you? Was there like a revelation one day going, maybe they just tune the whole guitar to a chord, or like, how did you learn? Like, did you learn open tuning songs in standard tuning?
I started off in standard tuning, but I was fortunate in that in this high school band, we auditioned a guitar player at one point who played a bit of slide and knew open tunings. Now, remembering I wasn't playing guitar at this point, but I remember he left his guitar at my place one time, and I kind of got it out.
Yeah.
And I must have been at that point tinkering with the idea of guitar, and I knew the standard tuning, even though I wasn't playing. But, I strummed this guy's guitar, which was probably an open G, I think. Go, wow, that's a chord. And then, okay. And then, I see what's going on here. And then, and probably probably reading about it as well. I mean, this is pre-internet, obviously, so you don't have all this YouTube stuff going on that, which would have been great. But so it's kind of a backwards way of doing it. But so once I worked out the open tuning thing, when I started playing guitar, then I knew that there was standard and open tunings, and I first started messing around in I think Open G. I first started messing around in, and trying to do Robert Johnson stuff, because he used a lot of G and A. Although, as you said, it wasn't in concert pitch. Some of it's in B flat, but it's still an open G shape.
Yeah. Yep. And in those sort of early stages, were you improvising or like sort of creating or composing perhaps? Or was you sort of just trying to learn
really,
the basics
really
of
both.
the great
I started songwriting immediately, basically, and more because of the fact that I was just using the guitar as a vehicle for the songwriting that I'd already – I mean, I kind of was interested in poetry and stuff like that, and had dabbled in writing things prior to playing guitar, as in writing lyrics. So I'd done a bit of lyric writing, and I probably forgot to mention that as well. I had another friend who had an auto harp, and I did, before playing guitar, I did work with that because they're chordal, you just strum it, and so I was getting the intervals and the idea of the differences between the chords, and I had already started writing songs like that, or at least one song that I remember. So I did that. And in terms of working out songs, I've never really been one to try and work things out exactly. I just kind of work out. I try and find the elements of the song that I think are the most critical, work them out, and then improvise on the rest. Sometimes that might mean most of the song, and other times it won't. So I don't kind of work things out note perfect by any means. And in the 80s, I went to America I was living there for about 6 months, and I was living in West Virginia, and at the time I met a lot of people who to this day had completely, they formed my career in a way, or my kind of musical journey. Many respects. One of them being Phil Wiggins, who harmonica player. I met Phil then, and John Cephas, and various other musicians, particularly from the Washington DC area, as well as John Jackson, who is a Piedmont style guitar player, who I met then, and then met in the 90s as well. And I knew John really well. Anyway, I was really heartened when I met John, and he was kind of the first tradition bearer that I kind of got to play with, who'd come up, playing this early blues music as a tradition bearer. And but he'd listened a lot to records. He'd listened to Blind Boy Fuller and Mississippi John Hurt on records, and tried to work the stuff out. And it was the same thing when he would do a song that would be a Blind Blake song. It sounded like John Jackson. You knew it was a Blind Blake song, but it sounded like John Jackson. And it's like, that's it. That's how you get your voice. He shouldn't sound like Blind Blake. He's not Blind Blake. He's John Jackson. And so it was quite a seminal moment for me. It was a bit of an epiphany when you think, what I'm doing is the right, for me anyway. It's not for everybody, but for me, it's the right thing. I don't try and work things out exactly. I try to work them out to a point and then stick in what I've got in it. Maybe the original owner of the song will hate it. I don't know.
Perfect.
But meeting John Jackson and hearing him play and go, he sounds like John Jackson, but he's doing Blind Blake, and then I listen to Skip James from the Bentonia tradition, sadly passed on many years ago, but you hear his stuff and you hear Jack Owens from the same area, and they do the same songs, but they're different because they sound like themselves, So that's an approach that I try to do. I try to maintain.
You ought to come, Miss Rosie. How the world do you know? Well, I know about her apron and the dress she wore, umbrella on her shoulder, piece of paper in her hand. Well, she's gonna tell the captain, turn loose my man, let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine its ever-loving light on me. Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine its ever-loving light on me. When you wake up in the morning, hear the big bell ring, knife and fork are on the table. You meet the same damn thing, knife and fork are on the table. Nothing in your pan, say anything about it. You have trouble with
I think it's a great approach for any artist, is to appreciate and to pass on tradition, but also to find your own voice or your own way of expressing that particular style of emotion, or sort of cultural awareness, or
emotion. Yeah,
it's just such a interesting way to do it. Like I think looking back, I kind of do a similar thing, just an approximation of the vibe or the like you said, the important part of the song, or the theme, or the structure or something, and then you don't learn it 100%. You learn the bits that point out to you, and then hopefully you've got a bit of your own flavour in there as well. And it brought me unstuck. I've been doing a Beatles show here in Tassie with some good mates, and it's probably been going for 3 or 4 years now. When I first sort of went down for the rehearsal for that, I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I know all these songs, like I've heard them a million times. I'll just write down the keys and off we go. But I got there and very quickly found out that I had to learn a particular part, had to have the right sound, note for note. Otherwise those songs just don't stand up. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe my approximation technique's just not going to cut it tonight. So
yeah, the show concept's quite different, isn't it? Really,
absolutely.
It's more people are coming along, and once the door closes and the last punter sits down, it's no longer the Beatles show; it's the Beatles. In their mind, it's kind of like they want to hear it like they can play it at home.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's kind of a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely learnt the hard way there, but it was a nice thing to get me on the game. So just looking through your discography, mate, you're pumping out a hell of a lot of music. I knew, obviously the Backsliders have, crikey, nearly 15 records. It'd be up there.
Yeah, 15 or 16, something like that. Yeah.
And then there's all your other projects that you are heavily involved in. How do you balance all of that? I guess like time management, or even like how do you come up with creation, like for particular groups or styles or people to collaborate with? You must be thinking about music all the time.
Yeah, it's no, I am actually. Well, to begin with, I'm time poor, that's for sure. As my family and friends will know, that my family gets neglected and stuff like that, so I'm time poor. But in terms of your question about how do the projects come about, well, so like Backsliders has always been kind of my main thing, and I kind of see everything else as, I don't want to play it down, but it's kind of like on the peripheral. But what happens is, like with Backsliders, which is essentially me and Rob Hurst, we've both got this thing, that we've talked about openly, that, we go away and do other stuff, and when we come back, it makes us more creative with what we're doing with that band, And when we go away and do other things, we find we come back and pretty quickly start to make a new record because we've got all these new ideas and it kind of works like that, And sometimes we will participate in each other's side projects as well, like that happens with recordings, helping each other out with stuff and whatever. So that's kind of, for me, it's kind of the heart of it, really. But I love doing other things. I don't want to just have one band. I like to have other things going. For that very reason, it keeps me fresh and keeps my ideas rolling. And some things I have, probably, while there's some things that are very similar to what I do in Backsliders, there's also personal differences in what I'm doing. And so I find that just a great thing to do. It's just creativity, that's all. Your question about collaboration. So yeah, I do really like collaborating with people, and I feel like I'm a kind of a good collaborator. I can work well with people, but I have to have a synergy with the artist, right?
Yeah.
I've got to have some connection, and I'm usually pretty good at working it out. And so, like for example, some of them were really easy. Like I work with harmonica player Phil Wiggins. Well, that was an easy one because, we've been brought up on the same stuff. He's a tradition bearer, I'm not. But he likes the fact that I'm coming in with a bit of a different approach, and we just connect musically, and it's just, we know the same songs, it's the same style. So that's kind of an easy one, and one I'm really proud of. I love that. But then there's other things that I have, like the Turner Brown Band, for example, with Nikki Brown, the Sacred Steel guitar player from Toledo, Ohio. So I basically sourced Nikki. She wasn't playing much. I just happened to find her stuff on the internet, and because I really love Sacred Steel music, and I had an idea of that kind of blues meets Sacred Steel. I knew it was going to work, So, but not any Sacred Steel artist, you know what I mean? It's not like, blues guy, Sacred Steel guy, I put them together. It's going to work. No, it's not going to work. There's got to be a personal synergy. So anyway, I saw her Nikki stuff, and I really connected with it. I was listening to it and looking at this. It was just one YouTube video. I thought, wow, she's playing notes that I would probably choose, and the feels and the grooves and all of that. And so I connected with Nikki, and then I went over to Toledo, and we got into a studio, and bam, we made a record in like a day. It was just
fantastic.
Wrote songs, made the record. It was immediate connection.
When the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. You got to move. You got to move. You may be high. You may be high. You may be low. You may be low. You may be rich, child. You may
And she performs with her sisters too, right?
Yeah, she does. She does. Yeah, she's got a great band. That's a long story in itself. But essentially, the Sacred Steel tradition originally, it started, I don't know, 75, 80 years ago in a number of churches in America, primarily in the South, but also in Ohio, where Nikki lives. And the idea is that they play, as you would know, steel guitar in church, and it kind of takes the vocal section of the sound. It's very vocal-like, very rock, For those who know Derek Trucks, I mean, he gets a hell of a lot of his sound. He's from Aubrey Ghent, who's one of the great living sacred steel players, and who Derek and Aubrey are apparently great friends. In fact, Derek's just been down in Florida for one of the sacred steel gatherings very recently, only in the last few weeks. He was down there, and Nikki was down there as well. But anyway, this tradition was inside the church, and it was frowned upon to be played outside of the church. And it wasn't until the 90s when Robert Stone went in, recorded some people, put out a book, that people like Robert Randolph started to come out into the secular world. But Nikki was very much in the sacred world. And I happened to connect with her at the right time, I think, because, if I had connected with her, I think, a couple of years earlier, she wouldn't have been interested, but she was. And she's got their family band, which is great. It's different, though, to what we do. And, so the connection works with that one, the collaboration on that. I really love working with Nikki, and it's a lot of fun. And, I mean, the idea with all the collaborations I have is unless, the combination is more than the sum of its parts, it's not worth doing. We have to be able to stretch ourselves, and it has to kind of be more than just this guy and this guy. I mean, there was one sacred steel artist who, when I was traveling over there, who I just happened to end up playing with briefly, and there was no connection at all. It was just like you'd think it would work, but it didn't. So sometimes the collaborations don't work.
Yeah.
And then the same with I collaborated with a Korean Jinhee Kim, who was a Korean kolmongol player, stringed instrument, not unlike the Japanese koto. And that was the same thing. I heard her stuff and thought, we could really do some stuff together. And I made an album with her called Microtonal Crossroads 2. And that was all done in one day. All the music was written in the day.
Oh, wow.
We just recorded it. Like we didn't, it was completely improvisational, the whole album. And that was a great, exciting experience,
Right.
A challenging day by the end. But, it was just fabulous. But it was exhausting,
so
completely exhausting, but it was just like, this is great. And I also there's an Australian musician, Tony Wheeler, who plays Chinese kujing, and I connected with Tony, and we did an album as well. That took a couple of days, that one, but again, primarily all improvisational stuff. And
I had that on. Actually, I've been listening to your catalogue for the last few days just to sort of get some sort of fresh background on a lot of the collaborations and the works over the years. And I was out chopping wood today, getting wood for the fire, and that album with Tony Wheeler, I was just in heaven. Had the Bluetooth noise cancelling headphones on. I was just chopping away for hours. It was a perfect match.
That was all one time. That's an example actually of as I said, with Rob Hurst and I working on each other's projects. Rob did the drums on that. We did them post recording. Right. Actually, he came in that. After Tony and I had done the tracks, and he put down the drums on that and did it. Yeah, an amazing job.
Because it's such a rich sounding instrument. It sounds pure and
the kujing,
rich.
It's
incredible. So the mixture of that and your
it's
resonator,
really For those who don't know, it's a kind of a long wooden box tuned quite low, but it's microtonal in that it's fretless. There's no frets on the wooden soundboard. So the musician is just sliding across the string. The strings are made of silk, thick silk, and so this musician's sliding to get those microtones. The first time I heard Kuchin was a documentary, probably in the early 90s, I think. I saw on TV. It's a documentary on Chinese music, and you can also see it in, I think it's in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. In that movie, I think there's a fight going on, a sword fight, and in the background there's a guy playing a Kuchin. And he ends up snapping all the strings. But when I first heard it, it's so tactile, this instrument, and visceral. And when I heard it, it was like immediately Blind Willie Johnson, Dark Was a Night, Cold Was the Ground. That the idea of these lots of single notes, and in fact, the documentary that I saw had a traditional piece that they were playing, and it was like, that's Blind Willie Johnson, Yeah, but this is like 2,000 years old, this music.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying one's copied the other, because it's impossible, because it's 2,000 years ago, and Blind Willie Johnson would never have heard that. But it just, for me, shows the connection. There's a sonic connection between cultures that all vernacular music seems to have these sounds and these note sequences, particularly when you're talking about microtones, that just seem to appear, thousands of years apart in that case. But anyway, the Kuchin's a wonderful sounding instrument, as you say, very rich.
Oh, so rich and deep, and how are they mic'd up? Like, how did you guys go? Like, just sort of like sit in the same space, like next to each other, or in isolation, or like what sort of mics we use, or placement? We
had to be in separate spaces, because the Kuchin's actually very quiet, and it's a meditative instrument that people play at home, and so it's very quiet.
Right.
So Tony's got pickups stuck all over it, contact pickups, and so he had those on there. We had mics, above it and under it as well, to try and get a combination of the microphones and the contact pickups. Mm-hmm. And I had to sit in another room because, my instruments are loud, particularly the electric guitars, but we had to have a visual connection. So, we're in separate recording booths, but we could see each other. So we could give eye contact, which is good. Live, we've done a few things live, in particular for the University of Western Sydney, and with that, Tony, some of it's on YouTube actually. We did a whole performance on YouTube, and Tony, used contact pickups for that, and I can't remember what brand he was using, but through a preamp, it's the same path that traditional acoustic guitar players kind of go down, miking up soundboards or using contact pickups or whatever.
Yep. And also, while I was, listening through the decades of music, you've got a really strong resonator tone. It just sounds, it's almost like you're in the space. Like it doesn't always happen. I know, tone does come from the person playing the instrument itself, but what's your go-to sort of mic technique in the studio with a resonator guitar? Because they are quite they have so many different sounds depending on where you put a microphone, around the cone area, around the 12th fret sort of area, or perhaps, like 10 foot back. Or do you have a mixture of all those things, or are you just sort of focusing on playing the guitar and let the engineer do his thing or her thing?
No. I'm thinking about that stuff all the time. So on the albums that I did with Phil Wiggins, they're probably the most acoustic. The two albums, Wolf Tickets and In the Devil a Day's Work. With Phil, I play completely acoustically. So we did both of those in Jim Magini's studio in Sydney, Oceanic. I do most of my stuff there, to be honest, because Jim's just an amazing engineer. But the mics, he had some room mics as well. So it's not just the instrument coming out of the resonator, it's the room as well. So he had room mics, but see, it's only harmonica and guitar, so we've got no drums or nothing else, particularly not cymbals filling the sonic space. So, but I also like a mic. I don't mic the cone. I like to mic just pointing up near the 12th fret. That kind of the bottom bout, the sound, the F hole at the bottom bout, it's got the most bass. I'm always after bass. It's got the most bass, and it's the sweeter tone coming out of there, rather than the harsher near the bridge. So I tend to mic there.
Great.
I've got a few, I've got an AKG condenser mic that I would use. In terms of recording resonators with backsliders or with other projects, I will plug in and mic as well. And my favorite pickups are the National Slimline pickups for resonators. I have had
Sunrise?
Mental block. Sunrise. I've had Sunrise. I've got one of my resonators still got a Sunrise on it, and I've got acoustics with Sunrise. I love Sunrise on wooden guitars, but for some reason or other, it works well on the resonator, but I prefer the thin line, the National thin line. I think there's a sweetness or something to them. They're a little sweeter or something, but I use it in combination with an internal mic. And thank you, Jeff Lang, for that. Jeff put me on to sticking an internal mic in, and so when I play live with Phil Wiggins, I've got a combination. I've got two jacks out. One's a mic, one's the pickup.
Great.
Wake up, mama, turn your lamp down low. Wake up, mama, turn your lamp down low. Well, I had to get the nerve to drive me from your door. You're a mean old woman, you treat me this way. A mean old woman, treat me this way. When I sneak down this time, well, I believe I'm gonna stay. My mama let me run reckless, but daddy just showed me why. My mama let me run reckless, daddy just showed me some sweet woman's angel child.
Amplifying acoustic instruments has been a struggle for everyone, I'm sure. I don't think everyone's ever cracked it, but definitely Jeff Lang has spent a lot of time and energy on it, and he gets a cracking tone. Yeah,
he sure has. He does. He gets an amazing tone,
and it can be loud.
I had a bit of a revelation. Yeah, and gritty. I kind of had a revelation at one point, but actually before going into that, in the 70s, I got to see John Martin live in Sydney, and late 70s, I'd only just started playing guitar, and I was really affected by it.
Yeah.
Because if anybody saw him in that period, and you can still see YouTubes of him in that period, where his setup was an acoustic guitar with a Diamond pickup on it and Frap contact pickups,
right,
through Echoplex and into a Fender Twin or a Roland. When I saw him, I'm pretty sure he had a Fender Twin, and in one channel he'd put the Frap contact pickup, and the other channel he'd put the Diamond pickup.
Yeah,
but the Diamond ran through a wah-wah pedal, some kind of fuzz box.
Wow.
And the Echoplex.
Wow.
And you had the most incredible he went from picking like Mississippi John Hurt to sounding like Jimi Hendrix in the same song, which was something that was unheard of at the time, that one person on good stage could do it. Mixed with the fact that he had these, I should have said 2 Echoplexes going, and so it was it wasn't looping, but it was kind of like a loop thing going on where he'd have these echoes triggering off in the middle of it, which is just a sonic, incredible sonic bath, but particularly for the time, it was revolutionary what he did with analog stuff. And you can still see it. If you have a look on YouTube, there's 70s clips of John Martin solo. It's really, really amazing. So that, I started to realize, wow, that's all coming from an acoustic guitar, man. This is, and you could see the Diamond magnetic pickup. And but anyway, then I went through this period where I was trying to get pure acoustic sound. Well, then I started thinking, I kind of went down the road of trying to get this absolute purity. I didn't even use magnetic pickups. It was like, I want to have piezo pickups, and I want it to sound like a true acoustic guitar. And it's like, no, listen to Lightning Hopkins, or he's got this Soundhole Diamond pickup.
Same thing.
And Elmore James is like, that's kind of, is it electric? Is it acoustic? I don't know. I don't care. It sounds great.
Yeah.
And then there's the same thing with Fred McDowell. I think, well, half the time he was playing electric anyway, It was some guys in the tradition didn't really care. It was like, I can plug it in, it's going to be louder, and I can get to more people in the audience.
Yep.
And I'm going to work with it. And, so anyway, I ended up sort of turning away from that path and thinking, no, I'm going to put some fuzz and distortion, and I'm going to think more like Lightning and Elmore and Fred,
Yeah.
But there are times. Sorry, I'll finish off by saying there are times when you want the acoustic sound. Like when I go into the studio with Phil Wiggins, because I want that sound, and then, you go.
Especially if you don't want the guitar to be a focus. If you want the lyric or another instrument to be the focal point of the tune, the guitar doesn't want to be big and bold and fuzzy or, layered in Echoplex.
Yeah.
So definitely everything has its moment, for sure. And you got some pretty wacky instruments too, Dom. And every time I see you, you've got a cool Tiesco or some sort of guide tone or crazy sort of Japanese-inspired electric guitar with, big pointy bits here and there. Was that a bit of a I guess Hound Dog Taylor had a bit of that going on too.
Hound Dog Taylor
was playing those kind of bizarre Italian instruments, and like Buddy Miller plays some pretty weird looking instruments. What got you? What got you the bug for those cool old guitars?
I think Okay, so there's the whole look of them. I love the look of those kind of crazy, wacky guitars.
Yeah.
But it's more than that in that I'm fortunate is that not only do they look great, particularly the Japanese-made ones, and actually there's kind of two lines of guitars that I like. The 1960s Japanese-made, there's quite a few of them, Kawaii, Teisco, Audition, Guiatone. I don't actually have any Guiatones, but most of them came out of the same factory. And there's a few different types of pickups that came from those factories, and I love them. They just suit my sound. They're single coil, but they're really high output in general. No, the Guiatones are not actually. The Guiatones are lower output, but most of the Teisco ones, not all, and I go for the high output ones. So
sure.
That's kind of the reason why. So I've got a number of them that most of them I've had for years, and they just appear here and there. But in Real Blues Project, there's a couple of Teiscos I use, as well as St. George, which is another Japanese 1960s, came out of the Teisco factory. It's a 12-string. I use that one a lot in Real Blues Project. That's great. But then the other ones are the American 60s Valco guitars, which is essentially National, Supro, Airline.
Yep.
Those three companies, basically same hardware, came out of the same factories, I think, but the hardware's all the same. And the pickups have got a sound, the Vistatone pickups. And so I've got a Supro 1965, I think it is, or 64, that's got two Vistatones in it that I love. I've got a National Val Pro mid-60s that's got one of the Vistatones in it. But the one that I use most now, I've got a couple of other Vistatone pickups that I bought online, and I put them onto other instruments.
Yeah.
So they're floating around. But the one that I use the most now is a reissue Supro that has the same. It's got reissued Vistatone pickups made by this company called Roadhouse Pickups. I think they're from Portland, Oregon. And they have successfully made the Vistatone pickup. It's got a particular, it's kind of like a P90 sounding thing, but it's different. It's got a broader dynamic range for me, I think. It's sweet. And there's something about the mid-range that I really like with it. And it's got a lot of bass.
Great.
And it's just kind of perfect for me because, I'm playing fingerstyle. My thumb's going the whole time playing bass, and I need to have a lot of bottom end happening. So that one's a reissue, and I really love that instrument. I've been playing it for quite a number of years now, and it's like the best of all my American-made Valcos and all of that, all in one instrument.
Perfect.
Which is really cool.
Especially being a modern instrument too, you sort of don't mind using it, getting it out there, and if a few little battle scars appear here and there, it's fine. It's no big deal.
Very, very true, Pete. Very true. Yeah. There's that element to it as well.
Were those pickups an aftermarket? Did you have to sort of find them and stick them in, or do they come standard with the new Supro reissues?
No, they came with the original Supros and Nationals. That's the pickup that they all had. Yeah. The Vistatone, Valco Vistatone pickup.
Yeah.
But the reissue one, no, I didn't have to do an aftermarket. The Supro, actually, not all the new Supros have got them in. And I'm not sure if they're making the one that I've got anymore, which is a Black Holiday, it's called. There's also a Martinique that they made as well, which are basically reissues of 60s models. Yeah. But Supro started making kind of new models, not reissued models, and they got a slightly different pickup on it, kind of like a gold foil. Looks like a gold foil kind of thing, which is a cool pickup. It's really nice, but it's not a Vistatone. It sounds different.
Gotcha.
And
right. So are the Vistatones
so
like
what happened is...
Sorry, are they like a humbucker size pickup but only a single coil, right?
But only a single coil in it. Yeah. I can show you one right now if you like, even though this is not going to translate to audio.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's see it.
But so that's an original Vistatone.
Right. Yep.
And this is Roadhouse Pickups make a new version of it. You can probably see it's slightly smaller.
Yeah.
The original one's a bit big.
Yeah.
And then the remakes are more like a traditional humbucker.
Yep.
Why? Because then they can just fit into a humbucker space.
Sure.
But the Vistatones are a bit bigger.
Yep.
And they're the pickups that I kind of have on.
Great.
It's either them or this is a Hofner Shorty. And I've just
tiny.
Put these two pickups in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a travel guitar, but when I go to America, I take this one because I can just take it on the plane, and it's a great sounding thing, you know. Yeah.
Are they fiberglass, like hollow? Some of those old Nationals as well, like Supros, like the Map. One?
Yeah. So I've got a Map one. The Map one, it's the one It's actually my Map one is currently in Tamworth in the, what's it called, the National Guitar Museum or something.
Oh, right.
Can't remember the name of the museum. There's a guitar museum in Tamworth, and it's on display there. My Valco National Map guitar is there. But yes, it's Reso glass. So it's basically fiberglass body, which affects the sound as well. It does have an effect. So cool. My Supro is wood-bodied, so that's different. And it's the same model that there's a few photos of Jimmy Reed with the same model that I had. I think it's called a silver wood.
Okay.
And the new one, the Black Holiday, Supro Black Holiday, the reissue, that's Reso glass as well.
Okay.
So they're slightly lighter too, which is cool.
Yeah.
And hollow.
Yeah. Oh, too cool.
You know how his poor boy feels. I've been shooting craps and gambling, honey.
And what's coming up for you, Dom? You must have another project on the back burner, no doubt.
I don't have a new project as such because because the Raw Blues project is fairly new. Really, it's just starting to gain momentum, and we're starting to do a lot of festivals. We did a lot last year, and so we're going down at the end of this month to the Echuca Winter Blues Festival with that, and then I've got a bunch of gigs around Sydney, and there's a bunch of things coming up with that. We're doing the Mitchell Creek Rock and Blues Festival. So I've just finished a tour with the Turner Brown Band, which was really cool, which is great. So I've just got to the end of the year, I'm mainly doing the Royal Blues Project at this point. Backsliders is unfortunately off the road temporarily. We've got an illness happening in the band that we have to deal with. So we're just off the road. It looks like probably to the beginning of next year at this point. So we just cancelled out everything for now. So, I'm just doing the Royal Blues thing at the moment. Which has been great, and because we've just put out the album, and so we're sort of looking forward to getting out and promoting that a little bit.
Excellent. And can folks find it on the streaming services, no doubt?
No.
They
can't.
Got to buy it.
No,
get out there.
They can't. You got to buy it. Yeah. Look, Pete, actually, it will end up on. We're going to put up one song on streaming.
Yeah.
But as you would know, putting out albums and then putting them on streaming, anyway, it's pretty hard to make any money back.
Yeah.
But so we haven't got it up on streaming yet. We will at some point, but at the moment it's just you can get it from it's only available through our website, my website, domturner.com.au, as a digital download or as hard copy CD.
Great.
It's also on Bandcamp. I think that's about all. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole streaming thing, I treat it like a business card. It's like you just have to sort of have it out there, and if someone listens to it and inspires them to come to a gig or buy a record, great.
Yeah.
I definitely don't sit by the bank account watching for it to grow.
No.
One sort of question I sort of do ask a lot of people on the podcast is there one investment you reckon that has been a big part of your career? Like perhaps it was like getting management, or perhaps it was a particular guitar that inspired a new something. I don't know, everyone's got a different aspect onto what one influential part of your career, like an investment, like I said, being physical or mental or whatever, equipment.
I think it's really what I was saying earlier about in the 80s when I went to America for the first time, and it was a lot of coincidence and a lot of luck where I ended up meeting a bunch of people who were tradition bearers. And for me, you can put it down as an investment. Going on that trip just had so many benefits in terms of my music career. And I don't mean career in terms of, making money and doing things. I just mean as music in my life, helped me develop by meeting these people, and sort of the ramifications of that continue to this day. I just, I have these connections of these great friends that I have, some of them have passed on, but then, there's other people in there. And so that for me has been probably the biggest thing, I think. Yeah.
What made you make that decision to head over there? Was it purely music?
Yeah, it was just music. Yeah, it was just, just years and years of, well, it wasn't actually, I was only in my 20s then, but at the time I think it's years and years.
Yeah.
But, from listening to all these great records, and it's like, wow, I've got to go to these places and try to meet people. And so, I kind of did a trip to the South and ended up, through Louisiana and Mississippi and up to Memphis and up to Chicago, spending time up there. But in particular, after all of that, then I ended up in West Virginia because my wife and I met some people, and we ended up in West Virginia. And then we just sort of, it was all this contact with some great people from the Piedmont blues scene. And in particular, there's one woman that we met who's a musicologist, Joan Fenton. She's not a known musician here, but she's a great guitar player, and she hung out and knew Reverend Gary Davis and various other artists from New York, because there was such a big scene in New York, the kind of coffee house scene in the 1960s.
Yep.
With Son House and Skip James and Mississippi John Hurt. All of those artists were playing there, so she had connections with them and with other musicologists, and just it was had a huge impact on me. And I did a lot of playing there as well, and it gave me a chance to, as I mentioned, play with tradition bearers and kind of get a close connection with the roots of the music that kind of I'd loved and had been looking at from the outside for so long. Could finally kind of get in and see it done firsthand, rather than from a distance. So that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah, it would have been massive sort of moment for sure, especially to meet and to hear the music firsthand. Did you go in
right.
cold? Like,
and have the
or did
opportunity
you have
to play with people,
Did you have contacts you sort of hit up at all? Like, or did you just pretty much just sort of plonk yourself in, in the thick of it and just hope for the best?
No, I went in cold, but I went in cold, Pete. But it was coincidence that I just happened to. There was a friend that I had here who was had moved to Martinique in the Caribbean, and my wife and I kind of went down to Florida, and then we went down to visit him, and then while we were there, we met somebody else who knew this person, Joan Fenton, this musicologist, and he said, "Look, when you come back, come and hang out with me for a while."
Great.
And we did. And then we ended up, it just kind of went from there. And so, and I got to play quite a lot within that kind of community. And it was a huge experience. And it was kind of a beginning for me, I felt.
Yeah, right. So it was pretty monumental at the time. You sort of felt that was the crack of the egg, so to speak.
Yeah. It also helped me to. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't have the opportunity before. But the idea that this music has such deep roots, you've got to keep going back, and you've got to try and get as close to the source as you can. To see people who are close to the source, see how they play it and why they're playing it that way, and because it helps you develop, or it helped me develop anyway. I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody, but it helped me develop in a certain way. And it's just something I felt that I had to do, and I'm really glad that I did, and I continue to do it. I go back to America as often as I possibly can, in particular North Mississippi now, because I've got such great connections there, and I've fallen in love with the music. I always have been, because of Fred McDowell came from there, and so I've kind of fallen in love with the music from that area as well.
That's great. Such a wonderful thing to have done, and I'm sure friendships as well you've created that are going to last forever. And like I said, to see that sort of music in the source, like, and because I guess it is a tradition that's getting older, especially to see your originators who are not, reinterpreting, definitely would have been a big trip, and great to see that you're doing it on a regular basis, and keeping putting fuel on the fire and staying excited and sort of learning, and it's very cool.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. It's a huge part of it. Yeah, got to keep learning.
Absolutely. What was the last record or album you bought? Speaking of learning and listening, anything contemporary?
I just bought. Well, actually, kind of contemporary. I just got. I'm a fan of John Spencer and John Spencer Blues Explosion. I'm a fan of lots of people, but anyway. And I just sourced an album that he did in 2010 that I didn't know that he had put out.
Right.
So I just got that, and I'll have to bring up the name for it because you're probably going to want it for the podcast. But that there was that, and I've also been listening quite a lot. In fact, so much so I've even been listening to it today, to Kikagaku Moyo. That's a Japanese band, young guys who play it pretty hard. It's very 60s in a way, lots of experimental songs. I can't even describe the music. It's certainly rock, but it has kind of jazz and funk influences in it as well. Very experimental music. Excellent. But I've been really getting into them. Kikagaku Moyo. And yes, the John Spencer album, it was a collaboration. It's called Amsterdam Throwdown, King Street Showdown, that I've been really getting into the last few days.
Excellent.
So that's kind of on my listening list at the moment.
Fantastic. You always like to throw some albums out there to the listeners, broaden everyone's horizon. So yeah, if you've got any other albums there, like real keepers, like are there ones that you keep going back to time after time, like any start to finish, you just can't turn it off kind of albums?
Oh, I've got so many like that, Pete. The very first one that I mentioned, The Sound of the Delta on Testament Records, that one. Anything by Blind Willie McTell or Blind Lemma Jefferson, all of those ones. You're talking about more about modern albums?
No, not necessarily.
Whatever?
No, ones that have just sort of impacted and made a statement to you.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many. I'm just looking at my playlist here. Little Feet Sailing Shoes.
Great.
You know, I can't listen to that album enough. Oh wow, gee. I'm on a spot here. Any of the Junior Kimber albums, you know.
Yep.
Sly and Robbie.
Yeah.
Wow. No, this any of Fred McDowell's albums. No, there's so many records.
There's so many.
Yeah, you just want to play from start to finish over and over again, but there's not enough time in life.
I've been following a guy called Charlie Hunter on Instagram. Have you heard much of Charlie's playing?
Yes.
He's doing this Blind Blake thing at the moment. He's going right down the road of his style, and he'll put up these videos that are so good, incredible. But his other style of playing is like half bass, half guitar. So, and it'll be just him and a drummer, and he'll incredible. Like his dexterity and approach to music is so insane. But yeah, I've been really loving what he's been putting on Instagram lately.
I have heard some of his stuff before, and that name's come up before, that Charlie Hunter. So, I'll go back and revisit.
Definitely worth a look. Well, I won't take up any more of your time, Dom. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here on the podcast. Hope to see you again in the flesh sometime soon, and to catch up, and hopefully
thank you very much, Pete.
Doing very well, and thanks again.
No worries. Great chatting to you, Pete.
Cool. Next time. Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Say It With Guitars. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share it around to your mates, leave a good review, and hopefully we'll see you next time.